There was an unusual number of various types of eclipses in the 7th century off the west coast of Norway. The Edda relates that Odin writes to the underworld to ask a dead Sibyl the meaning of Baldur's life-threatening dreams. On the way, Odin meets a howling dog, all bloodied on the breast. The celestial mirror of this description shows us Mercury on its course east from Taurus to Scorpio, in its last circuit preceding the eclipse of March 21st, 619. Mercury can dip to 7 degrees below the ecliptic and thus skirts the bright yellowish star Procyon in the breast of Canis Minor, the lesser dog. This interpretation of the myth is acceptable, but lacking in highlights or color, to be precise, and it does not explain the misery of the beast indicated by its howling. Sirius in Canis Major, arising in the same sector and thus acceptable, is the brightest star in heaven, but it is white. The ancients, however, unanimously describe it as red, or reddish. Redder than Mars, says Seneca. And the Romans sacrificed red-furred dogs to its rising. It has recently been postulated that Sirius was a red giant, which exploded between the 6th and the 10th century in a red dissipating cloud, metamorphosing into a white dwarf, the present Sirius B. The bloody-breasted howling dog in our myth could be an encoding of this event, which would then have taken place late in the year 618 AD. Odin's quest in itself would imply an advanced knowledge of the events to follow. All things weep for Baldur. The Taurian sector is the Valley of Tears in heaven, where the Hyades and the Pleiades weep into Eridanus, the river of heaven. This is the rainy sector of heaven, with the life-giving rains of spring. It is also the site of the Perseids, one of the most prolific meteor showers raining down over this sector. The ogress is said to come riding a wolf with serpents for bridle. The moon has passed through Lupus, serpents, and Hydra on its way to the sunset. The little dwarf Litur is kicked into the fire by an irate Thor. Litur means color, but often stands for red in poetry. Mars is called the red planet, and it can be quite small when farthest away from the Earth. Hermódur the Quick is sent off to Hel to reclaim Baldur. This means that Mercury, always close to the sun, is the fastest of the planets and here the first to set. Thor hallows the pyre with his hammer Mjolnir. This means that Jupiter is shining brilliantly over the setting sun eclipse from its position of power as he rises across the heavens in Scorpio. Nanna, wife of Baldur, throws herself upon the funeral pyre. That means Venus is so close to the sun that it sets with it and fades into its coronal fireworks. The gods are crestfallen and unable to accomplish anything. That means that the planets are faded out by the brightness of the coronal flares. Now we come to the mistletoe. I consider this to be represented by the horns and head of Taurus. They seem to hang off the Milky Way by the stars at their tips. The appearance is much like that of the mistletoe hanging off its host tree. The mistletoe has always been an object of religious and mystical veneration, and was considered by the ancients to represent the soul or genitals of the tree. Adding to its mystery is the fact that the word also means a sword in Icelandic. In the present context, that fact may refer to the sword-like appearance of the horns and head of Taurus. Baldur is killed by the mistletoe. Baldur is the sun. The sun is setting as it goes through the horns of Taurus. That is, it is being gored by its horns, the mistletoe, or pierced by the mistletoe sword, very much as the sacred kings who fell upon the sword at the predetermined end of their reigns. The Edda speaks of the mistletoe as a wand which has a V or a Y-shaped form. This also conforms to the shape of the horns and head of Taurus. Constellationally, Horder is represented by Orion and is, as the Edda says of Horder, standing outside of the circle of men, namely outside of the zodiac. Orion's stand-ins are funny in the head, blind or zonked out or headless. That's because the head stars of this splendid man-like constellation are missing or very faint. This silent drama is enacted by the planetary movements. It is played out on the celestial stage against the mural-like background of the constellations Orion as Horder, Taurus as the mistletoe, and Perseus as Baldur. Loki as Saturn is in the horns of Taurus already, close to the Aldebaran, and with its brilliant staves of light reaches for the hand of Horder, Orion, to guide his throw of the mistletoe. Death embedded in the essence of life. The action is frozen here. The actors, the planets, play against this illustrated backdrop. The strange-sounding statement that none of Baldur's judgments will hold is a mythical recognition of the astronomical fact that with the ending of the age of Aries, which is the age of Baldur, the fall equinox has moved into Virgo from Libra, the mansion of Baldur. Therefore, Baldur no longer occupies the seat of judgment. All the features mentioned are observable events. A total eclipse of the sun with conjunction of all the planets at or near Taurus occurred off the west coast of Norway in AD 619 at the vernal equinox. This was followed by an annular eclipse in 650, also with similar planetary grouping. Both great events took place within the lifespan of the same observers. Here we have an omen of calamitous significance. The sun of life itself is blackened out as it sinks below the waves. It is dying, this time permanently, never to rise again over mankind. The coronal flares are but a final gesture of farewell. The sun is going under in a black sunset, emblazoned with tongues of flame like the funereal ship of a Norse chief. But the Edda promises that Baldur will return with the rising of a new earth from the sea.